What's next?
Next one comes from Matthew. He says, I have a friend that listens to your show and enjoys it, but didn't like your
Because it's
segment.
awesome. Hang on. Let's
Didn't
talk
like your
about how good I am. Just a minute.
You want to
There's
go
a
ahead and run
reason.
with that?
There's a reason he listens
Okay.
all the time.
All right. There was a but.
What's that?
There was a but coming.
Oh, there's a but?
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
that wasn't the question.
I thought that was it.
No, that's actually
Okay.
not.
Go ahead then.
He says, I have a friend that listens to your show and enjoys it, but didn't like your segment on global warming. Do you think global warming is a problem that is being way overblown in order to increase government, or do you simply think that it isn't a problem at all?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Let's back up for a minute. The first is I'm not a climate scientist, so I don't know. Like, you can throw all the data that you want to at me. It's not like I can parse through it. And the funny thing is, for 99.9% of the human beings on this planet, neither can they. So anybody who takes this hardline approach, either global warming doesn't have an effect or global warming does have an effect, 99.9% of the human race doesn't know what they're talking about. That's the first thing you have to understand about the global warming argument. So I look at it and I say, the first thing I know is that global warming isn't really happening, because that would be the key phrase if it was. Instead, they've made it climate change. So the question is climate change happening? Well, no idiot. You'd have to be a complete idiot to say that climate change wasn't occurring. Like, it happens. It's happened all throughout history. That we found shark's teeth in Kansas. Right now, why would there be a shark's tooth in the middle of a field in Kansas? It's because at one point during the evolution of the world, or Noah, if you believe, I mean, if you're a believer, that was covered in water, and there was a time when that was the case. There was a time when we had when we know that we had an ice age, and it was a very, very cold time to live. We also know there was a time in the Middle East when it was a lush rainforest. That's why there's so much oil, or at least that's why they think there's so much oil under the ground, is because at one time there was a whole lot of foliage where there's now desert. So no, I don't know any sane person who would object to the idea that climate is changing. But I want to see, I don't have anywhere I can go to get non-biased information. I either have biased information of people trying to tell me that climate change exists and they're getting funded by the government, and the government has an incentive to try and make sure that these guys produce the type of return that they want, or the type of outcome that they want. And the guys who are doing the studies know that the government wants them to produce studies that show that there's climate change, because the government has an incentive to try and take over more and more of your life and more control. Either that, or I've got the guys on the other side who are trying to refute it, and they're using their own logic in order to try and dispel all of the latest report that they saw from the guys who say that climate change is real. So the bottom line is, I don't know. But I know that the guys who were really harping on this, who said it was going to end the world and life as we know it, said that Miami was going to be underwater, that New York City was going to be underwater by 2015. That hurricanes and tornadoes and all of this stuff was going to become a bigger and bigger issue as climate change became more real. And I know that none of that stuff has happened. Now, are sea levels rising in some places? Yeah. Are some polar ice caps melting? Yeah, I think so. Although I get conflicting evidence on that and conflicting reports on it. So all I'm saying is, before we go giving government more power and more authority to tax us, to restrict our commerce, before they start taking more money out of our pockets to cure a problem that may or may not exist, how about we just wait half a beat? Because even, think about it like this, even if climate change is happening, and even if it is man-made, and even if by making some changes we could potentially stop it, does anybody think government ought to be doing it? They don't exactly have a track record of success anywhere for anything. Do we really want them solving the problem? No. I don't know anything that ever got better through more tyranny. I don't. And so this whole climate thing, I spent a lot of time like talking about how making jokes about how climate change is fake and putting out all this evidence and reading the reports and stuff like that. The truth is, guys, I have no idea, but I am not in any way, shape, or form going to advocate the government removing more of my liberty or taking more of my money to fix some problem that has not affected my life or anyone else's life that I know in any way since they started talking about it. 1970s, it was climate change was going to the great freeze was going to kill us all, the next ice age. Then it was going to be a lack of food because we had too many people in the world. Then all of a sudden it was global warming and the world was going to get hotter. Now it's climate change. These people don't know what they're doing. And don't pretend for 1 second that these scientists, these quote unquote scientists, are out there of noble heart, just trying to do the right thing, just trying to get the facts out to you, the American people. Every one of them survives off the government's dole. If they're not surviving off the government dole, then they're surviving off of some private sector money that's coming to them because they have a specific interest in creating one outcome over another. And so if you're sitting on the other side of that and you're a scientist and the government says, hey, we want to commission some studies on climate change. We think this might be an issue. And you do a climate study that says, yeah, we really didn't find anything. In fact, we can guess that we have some models we created that might show in the future that we'll see some, but we got 1,000 other models that show nothing. And they say, oh, thanks. That's great. And then what do you think is going to happen the next time you try and get a grant from the government? Sorry. Yeah, we're not going to give you any money. You didn't produce what we wanted you to produce. That's the way the government works. I had a guy who sent me an email who's a scientist, and he said I had a buddy who wanted to go to the Caribbean and study turtles. And so he wrote up a proposal, and the key proposal that got him the grant money to go there from the government was he said, I want to assess the effects of climate change on the turtle population. Like, these guys know how to play the game. They know how to go get the money. They're not producing this stuff in a vacuum. They're not out there just trying to do the right thing. They're trying to feed their families like everybody else. You have to be skeptical anytime somebody says, hey, I want you to give up a lot of your liberty, either through the form of new regulation or new taxation or restrictions on where you can go and what you can do.
I want you to completely restructure your life from the car you drive to the light bulbs you use.
And it's going to make everything more expensive, significantly more expensive, 2, 3, 4 times more expensive than it currently is. You had better not be anxious to jump into that pit. I would hope that you would be sound enough of mind to say, I know all these guys are saying that the world's about to end, but I got to tell you, they've been saying that for about 30 or 40 years, and I can't tell any change that's happened that's really affected my life. Like, I can't, not one. And if you can't see that, then I think you got a hard time making the case that we need to start radically changing our lives and putting us further down into poverty, making it harder for us to live and feed our families, just because the government says they want more control and more power to fix a problem that they sure as heck can't fix. I can promise you that. Even if everything they say is true, the government is not the person to fix it or the group to fix it.